is a chance to explore Modi as a person, as a personality, Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, but what's he like as a leader? What has formed his personality and his characteristics? And I'm delighted that we have Andy here, who has spent quite a lot of time with Narendra and also has been able to, I think, reflect on his personality. And when we were having a conversation before as well about this and just going through his book, really struck by the sense of the individual that comes through in the way that you have written the biography. I think first it would be really interesting to know, Andy, when you first met Narendra Modi, what was your impression of him as a person? What really struck you?
I thought that he was a very centred person. He stood up from behind his desk, came round and shook hands, and he seemed completely relaxed with himself. There were no airs and graces. And as I said, I said, what shall I call him? He said, call me what you like. He was a very classy guy in the sense that he didn't act as if he was the leader of 60 million people, which he was at the time. He just was welcoming one person to his office. And if big important people tend to develop big important habits, and it struck me immediately that he didn't have any of those. And sure enough, as I started talking to him, that became crystal clear that my first impression was not wrong. He was very easygoing, very open, very relaxed, laughed a lot, and it was very, very, very pleasant company. You could suddenly realise he'd been chatting for hours and you hadn't realised it.
And that's quite interesting because you've given an illustration of a sense of humour, which isn't always what people portray Narendra Modi as having. What were the different parts of his character that struck you, and are they consistent with perhaps the public image that people have of him?
Basically, what you have to do is think of the public image, which really only exists post-2002, and turn it on its head. Because the biography, the public biography of Modi that's been written by the Indian media, chiefly, is one that's been written by his political enemies. And I thought there was no way, as I say in my notes, there's no way that somebody could be as black as he's painted. But over a decade of, well-funded and directed black propaganda, by the repetition of certain things, it became common knowledge, common sense that this was what he was like. He was dictatorial, he was fanatical, he was all these things. And the truth is, he's the opposite of that. He was a religious nut. He's not religious. Stop press. He's not bothered about religion. He's spiritual. He does his yoga completely different. That he's a prisoner of the RSS, which is kind of the Sangh Parivar, the family of right-wing nationalist groups in India. That absolutely untrue. He spent his time as Chief Minister of Gujarat fighting the RSS, trying to drive the development and the inclusiveness of the state against some of the machinations of the people on the right. In other words, whatever you think of Modi that you've got from the media, especially the English language media, especially in Delhi, turn it on its head, because that's the truth. And the remarkable thing that's happened since May the 16th is that the media seems to have realised this. It's unbelievable, the 180-degree reversal that's happened in a matter of weeks. And everybody who was lining up to call him Hitler is now giving you advice. And I'm disgusted, that's what I can say.
Maybe we can explore for a minute as well what you think his motivations are. I find it extremely interesting that we have a Prime Minister who doesn't describe himself as political. And now you've also talked about him not describing himself as religious. So how would you describe himself?
I think he's a workaholic. I think he is... I think because he started so early in the RSS, he was inculcated with that idea of national service. I think he's a big tough guy. He's got very thick skin, as you have to have if you're in politics, especially in India. But I think he's very sensitive, and it cuts him when he sees inequality and injustice, not only poor and rich, but also between caste and also between community. And he, as he always says to me, I'm for the last man. fact, we had an interesting discussion. I said, you see, you're not a Democrat, you're a Republican. I said, the problem with democracy is vested interest groups come up, and in the end your vote means nothing unless you're part of a bloc, you get ignored. And you are absolutely Athenian Republican. And he said, shush, 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 you can't say I'm not a Democrat in India. Right? I'm a Democrat. I said, yeah, I know you are, but he said, no, it's got to be the last person, the poorest person, the most handicapped person. Everybody has to be equal and to benefit. Right? And the way you do that is development, because development benefits the poor disproportionately. And that's the one thing the previous governments wouldn't do. They would fling grain out at election time, so you would have some gritty rosy. But you would not build them a road, give them a hospital, something that worked. And he said, in Gujarat, he said, I'm going to do that. And that's what he's done. That started very early on. He'd been doing it all his life. Remember, he didn't want to go into politics. He wasn't a politician. He was a backroom boy. He was a political organiser for the BJP. Travelled around to different states and sets of states in the country, organising and helping in elections. And wherever he went, they won. Wherever he went, the BJP always won the election. And this was noticed, not only by Advani, but also by people in Congress, which is why they were onto him so early, I think. And he got into it. It's his obsession. But more than politics, it's development, improving India. And I think when he says, I'm an apolitical CM, which is what he kept saying, I believe him. He's not very interested in politics.